See, totalitarian philosophies and religions, which are mostly the Abrahamic faiths, the monotheistic Abrahamic faiths, as against Sanatan Dharma, are two contrarian philosophies. They do not meet anywhere. So, to say that they can coexist and to force them to live together when every ritual, every philosophy and in practical life is completely diagnostically opposite of each other, is frank utopia, and things don't work in utopian world. And the consequence of this attempt is that a lot of energy, a lot of money and a lot of resources are being needlessly spent on a wasteful strife. What are we achieving by this? As a civilized scientific nation, we should try to do the math. What are we achieving out of this perceived coexistence? This coexistence was brutally shattered in 1947. We will not go into the genesis of what caused 47, but let us start that 47 happened, right? And in 47, and two nations were carved out of the Indian subcontinent, that was Bharat and Pakistan, on the basis of religion. Now we have to be either delusional or first grade liars to say that no, religion was not the basis of partition of this country. It was just a whim of Mr. Jinnah. Mr. Jinnah had a critical mass. He had a philosophy to rely upon which caused the partition of this country. Let us be honest and let us be smart enough to accept that. Now once that happened, it was brilliantly botched up by our leadership at the time. It's like an incomplete surgery. It's worse than the original disease, because the original disease would have probably killed the patient in a X amount of time, but here with a botched up surgery the patient bled to death and with insurmountable pain and suffering that caused to him. So that was the consequence, and the consequences of a botched up partition in 47 are still being felt, and these are not tremors, these are real jerks that the polity of this nation, both Hindus and Muslims, are facing, because it was an incomplete partition. The only leader at the time who vehemently proposed a total exchange of populations was Baba Sahab Bhimrao Ambedkar, but he was silenced, he was ignored, and the results are for us to see. Hindus are trapped in that country. Muslims do not feel safe and secure in this country under a so-called Hindu leadership in Delhi. So everybody is in pain. Partition was incomplete because there was no total exchange of population. It was premised on religion, right? Jinnah said that we are two different people and we can't coexist. Fair enough. You take your land and you take your people. You have no idea, sir, the amount of suffering Hindus have endured in the last 70 years in that country. They were 15% of that population. Now they are 1%. Somebody has to answer. Where have the Hindus gone? They have either been killed, they have either fled that country, or they have been converted. And the process is going on as we are talking here, sitting here right now. So this unfinished saga of a botched up partition, that the fruits are for everybody to see. Yeah, that's an interesting question. How reliable are our sources? Well, they're not really reliable in the sense that in that country they do not hold their census regularly. They usually hide the number of children they have, so the figures are not very reliable. But empirically, at the time of partition, there were 15% Hindus, which are now reduced to 1%. In sheer numbers, we have calculated that a conservative estimate is that 50 lakh Hindus, 5 million Hindus still live in that country. They are largely restricted to the lower Sindh area. There are about few thousand in Balochistan, few thousand Sikhs and Hindus in Peshawar, and few lakh Hindus in southern Punjab, mainly in a district called Rahim Yar Khan. About 250 Hindus on an average take Indian visa on religious grounds or medical grounds or personal grounds and cross over legitimately in a train, that's a Samjhauta Express, and they disembark at Monabao station, and then they surrender their visas to the Indian authorities, and they surrender their passports, and Indian government grants them refugee status. So approximately 1,000 Hindus are coming every month to Rajasthan alone. Yes, see, the thing is that out of these 5 million Hindus, about 1 million Hindus are rich. And when I say rich, they are really rich because they account for about 15% of the tax into the Pakistani economy. So less than 0.5% of Hindus account for 15% of tax of the Pakistani economy. The rest 4 million Hindus are the so-called lower caste, which it's a name which I am not very comfortable with. They are mainly Meghwals, Kolis, Bhils, Oud Rajputs and lower communities, so-called lower communities. They are the bonded laborers of the Vaderas, or the people who are the zamindars and the landowners in rural interior Sindh. Now, just as a footnote, in Bharat, zamindari was abolished as soon as we got independence, but in Pakistan it continues even today. So landowners have huge land farms there, which are tilled by the Hindus, laborers, who do that just in lieu of food, and they are treated as bonded laborers. And that's a very complicated process for a poor Hindu, at least, because you have to understand the geography of that country. They live in Sindh, which is, and to the southern Sindh, which is closer to India, but they go to, the person sets out from his village, goes to Karachi or Hyderabad, whichever is near to his place. He takes a train to Islamabad, which is about 1,000 kilometers. Then he sits outside the Indian embassy for days and weeks on end and applying for Indian visa, which most of them don't get. And they have to pay a lot of money to the touts and the middlemen who are sitting there like vultures. And they give that money, and few of them get an Indian visa. So the number of visas is like 250 visas per week. And he has to do 6 or 7 such trips before he actually gets that visa. So it's an ordeal for a Pakistani Hindu to get an Indian visa, which we have tried to talk to the central government. They have tried to ease the norms, but the logistics itself is pretty complicated. Yeah, after their arrival in India, they have to suffer a bit of the Indian police system. The intelligence bureau and the local state police, they have their own share of corruption. But with the advent of new notifications by this central government of 2014, things have eased a lot, because the FRRO office and mainly this office which concerns with the long-term visas and citizenship issues have become very considerate and liberal with these people. If they provide the government with the right documents, then they are taken care of. The good thing is that most of the communities coming from Pakistan have their own ecosystems here. For example, I live in Jaipur. In Jaipur we have a Meghwal community. It's a 10,000 strong Meghwal community. So any Meghwal who crosses over from Rahim Yar Khan legitimately is absorbed into that ecosystem, provided he satisfies the government of the day. So that is what our organization Nimittekam is doing, to act as an interface between the government and these refugees. Because you have to understand that most of these people are uneducated, and whosoever are educated are also in Urdu. They do not read or write Hindi. It takes a good 2 years of time to make us make them learn Hindi and to write and to speak. So we do the necessary paperwork, we do the computer application of the LTVs and the citizenships, and the local collector then grants them the citizenship or the long-term visas as the individual case be. See, the Indian government depends on what party is in the government. So if the Bharatiya Janata Party is in the government, then definitely it's a big relief for these people. Not only in Bharat, but even in Pakistan they become safe. The atrocities on Hindus are significantly less when there is a more powerful government in the center instead of a leftist leaning other governments. Then it's a free for all, because the kafir in such societies is always at the receiving end. So this government did a major shift of the goalpost by putting it in the manifesto. So for example, there are 18 organizations like ours who are working for the welfare of Pakistani Hindus. That's a major thing, where earlier there were only a couple of organizations working, because we got the courage and the stimulation and the sense of security that nothing is going to come to us, because the party of the day itself is putting it in the manifesto that we want to treat Pakistani Hindus as natural citizens of this country, which is a major shift in the policy. And it has been meticulously followed through by the Home Ministry, the External Affairs Ministry, and the Prime Minister himself. He has walked the talk. There are multiple notifications that have been issued to grant a lot of comforts to these Pakistani Hindus. For example, they can open a bank account, which was impossible before 2014. They can have a driving license, so they can always get a gainful employment once they land here. They can even acquire 200 square feet small properties, which is major, which is the maximum a refugee can ask for in any country. So if you ask me what this government has done, I would say a lot. Nimittekam has been largely an organization funded by my colleague doctors. Me being a surgeon, I approached my friends who are rich doctors in Jaipur, and they were moved by the plight of Pakistani Hindus, as you will see in the video which I will share with you. आपका नाम क्या है? मीरा बेग। अच्छा, आप कहाँ से आए हैं? हम सिंध हैदराबाद से। सिंध हैदराबाद पाकिस्तान से? हाँ, पाकिस्तान सिंध हैदराबाद। कब आए हैं आप? हमारे को 6 महीने हो गए। 6 महीने हो गए? 7वां शुरू हुआ, 6 के पूरे हो गए। तो आप वापस पाकिस्तान क्यों नहीं जा रहे हैं? भी हम दुखी हैं, वहाँ हमारे को जीने के लिए अधिकार ही नहीं है, तो हम कैसे जाएंगे? अपने धर्म का वहाँ मान ही नहीं है, तो हम कैसे जाएंगे? क्या मतलब इस बात का? धर्म का मान नहीं, जीने का अधिकार नहीं, कैसे? हमें जीने का ये नहीं, हमें मुसलमान वहाँ बनाते हैं, हमारा धर्म हमारे से वेस्ट करवाते हैं, गाय खिलाते हैं हमारे को, हम ऐसी कैसी जिंदगी जी? अपने सुहाग होते हुए भी हम विधवा रह के रह सकते, हम सिंदूर मांग नहीं भर सकते, हम मुसलमानों की जिंदगी कैसे जिएंगे वहाँ? हम हिंदू होकर मुसलमान कैसे बन सकते? हमारा तो बड़ा धर्म है तो हिंदू बनना। हम तो बोलते हैं हिंदू बने, मुसलमान नहीं बने। हम तो ये कहते हैं मुसलमान है वो भी हिंदू। एक मिनट मीरा, क्या कह रहे हो आप? बुजुर्गों का उधर पड़े हैं ना, दूसरा हमारा वो बेचारे तकलीफ में क्या। तुम वहाँ पे अपने त्योहार वगैरह कोई नहीं मना सकते थे?
वहाँ पे कोई हम त्योहार नहीं कर सकते, कोई होली दिवाली नहीं कर सकते। एक बार किसी के ऊपर होली का रंग पड़ गया तो उसको बंदूक से मार डाला।
और कोई मर जाता है तो उसको कैसे क्रियाक्रम कैसे करते हो?
उसको जलाते हैं सर। वो जलाने के लिए हमारे को जलाने नहीं देते, बोलते बदबू आती है, इसको दफना दो, कीड़े पड़ने दो इसको। हम बोलते हैं हमारा धर्म है पहले का, वही हमें धर्म करना चाहिए। फिर भी हमारा कुछ वहाँ मान नहीं है। जिसके पास भी जाते वही मुसलमान है, वही डांट पीट के बाहर निकाल देता है। कोई हमारा बड़ा अफसर नहीं बनाता, कोई हमारी पढ़ाई लिखाई नहीं है।
That this was the video which actually changed my life. Before that, I was any other routine middle class surgeon making my ends meet and vacationing with my family and partying on the weekends. That was my life. That was a vacant life I was living before I actually interacted with this lady, and it changed everything for me. That how can we be insensitive to this daylight robbery and murder of Hindus just 100 kilometers from the border. 3 Hindu girls, teenage girls, are kidnapped every day on a gunpoint, are raped by entire village and then converted, of course before being married to an imbecile or a retard or a physically challenged body. So how can we be indifferent to this genocide happening right under our noses? So Nimittekam came into being once I started talking about this to fellow colleagues, and they started funding us, and we have been able to get about 100 odd citizenships in this year alone, which is a major shift. We did not have 100 citizenships in the last 12 years. We have them in the last 4 months. 100 Pakistani Hindu refugees have been granted citizenship. This is all because of the paperwork that we aided the government and these refugees, and acting as an interface between the two of them, and facilitated the citizenship. The next plan of Nimittekam is to go to Jodhpur. I have posted a video, I can share it with you also. I was moved to my core when I saw the plight and the suffering of these Hindu refugees in Jodhpur. There are about 1 lakh Pakistani Hindu refugees living in Jodhpur. It's a mammoth task that awaits us. We have been very fortunate that a very gracious Hindu has given his prime time property to Nimittekam to start operations, and by 16th or 17th of the next month we will start operations of Nimittekam in Jodhpur. And Jodhpur is where the actual battlefield of this issue is, because that is the place where most of the Pakistani Hindu refugees first put their foot, and that's where they get stuck. They are not able to go anywhere else. So the next level of work for Nimittekam is to start the office and operationalize citizenship and long-term visa for Pakistani Hindu migrants in Jodhpur. See, as far as Hindus and Sikhs are concerned, Sikh population mainly resides in Peshawar, that's a northwest frontier province, and some in Punjab. So when they are migrating in few 20s and in dozens, but they mainly migrate into Punjab and Haryana. Sikhs do not live in Sindh, and in Rajasthan what we are facing is mainly the Dalit Hindu population, which are Meghwals, which are Bhils, Kolis, Malis, and these kind of people. Now that's as far as Sikh population is concerned. We just had one family of Sikhs coming to Jaipur. We took care of them and they are well settled now. To the second question, that why doesn't this issue get raised in UN? Well, this is because we have a completely apologetic, and if I may use the strong word, that blind Hindu leadership. Why did Hindus of Pakistan suffer like this for 7 decades? I mean, this is not something that is a secret. These are all official documents. They are on the net. Pakistan Human Rights Commission records are on the net. It's not something that I have created or you could have created. These are all official documents. So it's just, I would say, sloth, lethargy and lack of Purva Paksha of the Hindu leadership. This matter of Hindu genocide in Pakistan should be raised at the United Nations, and concerned people should be shamed and named. There's no doubt about that, because it's not as if it's a figure of imagination. These are living people living there. You come to Jaipur, there are people here in Karnavati, in Ahmedabad. You can go and meet them. These are the people who have left their homes. Who wants to leave his home? Who wants to leave his business? Who wants to leave his memories? Who wants to give up his roots? Unless the push from that civilization is that strong that a man wants to be uprooted and go to a safer and a secure country.